You want to know a secret? One that even the most confident, outspoken women rarely admit. Not to their partners, not to their best friends, not even to themselves in the mirror. It's this. Many women have desires that don't fit the polite, predictable stories they've been told they're supposed to want. Fantasies that feel too raw, too wild, too unfiltered to ever be spoken aloud. Not because they're ashamed of them, but because they've been conditioned to question them. To wonder, what will he think of me if I say this out loud? In countless private sessions, therapists hear the same thing. Women confessing that their minds wander into forbidden territory. Power dynamics, voyeurism, control, being wanted desperately, being watched, being taken. These aren't signs of trauma. These are glimpses into the erotic imagination, one that is vastly more complex, more layered, and more surprising than society dares to acknowledge. And yet, despite how common these fantasies are, they remain locked in the vault of silence. Today we are unlocking that vault. Not to shame, not to shock, but to reveal what leading voices in psychology, especially Esther Perel, have been saying for years, that female desire is not a gentle breeze. It's a hurricane hidden behind still water. One, the gap between what women say and what they feel. In her groundbreaking work, Mating in Captivity, Esther Perel writes that women have been raised in a culture where they are expected to be the objects of desire, but rarely the agents of it. Translation. They've been taught to be wanted but not to want. This cultural framing creates a split. In public, a woman may speak of love, trust, and emotional safety. But in private, in the landscape of her own mind, there exists something far more primal. A place where she's not negotiating connection, but surrendering to the unknown. Where she doesn't lead the fantasy, she loses herself in it. According to recent surveys, nearly 70% of women admit to having sexual fantasies that involve elements of domination or submission. But here's what's even more interesting. Many of these women don't want these things in real life. It's not about actually being tied up or controlled. It's about the feeling that the fantasy evokes, to be wanted so intensely that she becomes irresistible. To feel as though her desire is no longer her responsibility, but something that overtakes her, something she can surrender to. The paradox of female desire. Esther Perel describes female desire not as a straight line, but as a paradox. Women often crave what they shouldn't want, and want what they shouldn't crave. It's not about logic. It's about imagination. Erotic desire is deeply personal, and often politically incorrect. While mainstream media focuses on what women should want, romantic gestures, candlelight, emotional connection, what truly turns many women on lies outside that script. It's not always soft. It's not always slow. Sometimes it's fast. Sometimes it's rough. Sometimes it's completely out of character with the way she lives the rest of her life. That's because the erotic mind doesn't care about social rules. It doesn't care about being appropriate. It only cares about what creates aliveness, what shocks the system back into presence. One of Perel's most provocative insights is this. We often seek in fantasy what we repress in reality. That means that the more we try to be good, stable, predictable in our everyday lives, the more likely it is that our fantasies will take us in the opposite direction. Into chaos, into taboo, into the wild. 3. It's not about what you think it is. Let's make one thing very clear. Women's fantasies are not a reflection of moral failure or psychological damage. They are, in fact, a sign of emotional depth and erotic creativity. A woman might fantasize about surrendering, not because she wants to be powerless, but because she wants the freedom that comes from letting go of control. The real craving beneath it all is presence. Intensity. Attention so focused that it makes her feel like the center of someone else's universe, even if just for a moment. That's why so many fantasies are less about what is done and more about how it makes her feel. She wants to feel seen, desired, uncontainable, to be looked at in a way that burns through the layers of everyday life, beneath the mother, the worker, the partner, and touches something ancient, something sacred, something animal. 4. Why women stay silent about their desires. So why, if these fantasies are so common, are they still so hidden? The answer is layered. Shame is a powerful force, especially when it comes to women's sexuality. For centuries, female desire has either been controlled, dismissed, or demonized. A woman who confesses her fantasies risks being misunderstood, judged, or worse, rejected. And so, she learns to keep quiet, to edit herself, to pretend that soft affection is always enough, when deep down she may crave something far less gentle. Esther Perel argues that we must begin to separate fantasy from reality, not to act on every desire, but to allow ourselves to own them. Because the truth is, when a woman gives herself permission to explore her erotic imagination, she doesn't become more dangerous, she becomes more honest. And in that honesty, she becomes more alive. Ironically, the silence around women's fantasies doesn't protect relationships, it often starves them. When couples stop being curious about each other's inner worlds, desire begins to wither. Perel calls this the crisis of erotic intelligence. We stop asking, "What turns you on?" and instead settle for routine. We forget that seduction isn't just for the beginning, it's fuel for the long haul. 5. What do women really want? So what are these secret cravings, the ones rarely spoken aloud? Some women fantasize about being adored in public, put on display, admired, claimed. Others fantasize about total loss of control, being overtaken by someone who knows exactly what they want. Some are turned on by roleplay, by playing with power dynamics, by being the one who commands or the one who yields. And for many, it's not the act itself, it's the story, the emotional charge, the idea that someone is willing to risk something just to have her. That her presence disrupts, intoxicates, ignites. That she doesn't have to ask to be wanted, because the want is undeniable. These are not weaknesses. They are not betrayals of feminism. They are expressions of complexity. They are invitations to depth. And yet, the silence persists. A woman who shares her fantasies may worry. Will he still respect me? Will he still love me? But the truth is, when these conversations are met with maturity, safety, and curiosity, they can open up entire worlds of intimacy. 6. How to invite the conversation. If you're a woman listening to this and thinking, "That's me," know this, your fantasies are not a problem. They are a portal. If you're a man listening, wondering how to support your partner's erotic self, start here. Don't judge. Don't fix. Just listen. Make it safe. Make it warm. Ask with openness. Is there something you've never told me that turns you on? And if she hesitates, don't push. Curiosity is more seductive than pressure. Start slow. You don't need to live out the fantasy to honor it. Sometimes just talking about it, naming it, laughing about it, even writing it down, that alone can awaken something powerful. Remember, eroticism is not just about sex. It's about imagination. And imagination thrives in freedom, not fear. Section 7. The real reason fantasies matter. In the end, fantasies matter not because they're spicy or shocking, but because they reveal who we are when the masks come off. They show us where we feel most alive, most desired, most free. And when we share them, not recklessly but respectfully, they can transform a relationship from polite cohabitation into a living, breathing bond. Esther Perel teaches us that eroticism is not something you have or don't have. It's something you cultivate. Like a language. Like a garden. It requires attention, vulnerability, and a willingness to be surprised. So maybe the most courageous thing we can do is to stop asking, "Is this fantasy wrong?" and start asking, "What does it reveal about what I need, what I long for, what makes me feel fully alive?" Because when we learn to speak the language of desire, without fear, without shame, we don't just become better lovers. We become more whole,